Today we're going to talk about very, very relevant topic. Every one of us should be interested in what we are going to talk about in this session: well-being, heritage, and higher education learning. If we show the next slide, a brief introduction to what we are going to listen to today. We started from some questions, of course. How can well-being be promoted in the university context? And what role could the use of technology and heritage play in this context? Of course, higher education, university is the place for learning, for development, for growth, and for improvement of everyone's well-being. The session, through the participation of 7 experts from different European and non-European institutions, aims to investigate research experiences in the field of promoting and evaluating well-being in formal higher education contexts, especially through the use of heritage and technology as educational tools. I'll try to moderate this session, and with me we have very important speakers. I'm so proud of having them in this panel. Thomas Kador, Antonia Liguori, Diana Andone, Gila, Kurtz. Keren Koresh is not here with us today. She had a terrible loss, but she is with us with her heart. Maria Rosaria Re and Mara Valente. So I'll start giving the floor to Gila Kurtz after a very, very brief introduction. We will follow an alphabetical order, but of course we give the floor first to Gila, who is based in Israel, due to the problems that we all know and the fact that from one moment to the other she could need to leave the panel. So Professor Gila Kurtz, she's Dean of the Instructional Technologies Faculty at Holon Institute of Technology in Israel. She has different academic positions. She's a member of the steering committee of the European Distance and E-Learning Network and editor-in-chief of the interdisciplinary journal of e-skills and lifelong learning. Her main research interests are in the use of innovative technologies in training and learning. Thank you, Gila. Really, thank you for being with us on such a difficult time, and the floor is yours. Every one of us, of you, of course, has 10 to 12 minutes. I'll try to alert you when a couple of minutes are left, and then some, a very small time, 1 or 2 minutes for Q&A. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm Gila Kurtz, and I'm located in Israel. And thank you for letting me be the first, because we have alarms there and so I might have to go to the shelter. So I have a minute and a half. So when I hear it, I'll let you know. I'm really looking forward to share with you my ideas about the topic. And I did a slight change with the examples as related to the situation, what students feel about the heritage and the social network. So whatever you feel, just you can ask questions. I'm not sure I can see the chat now because I'm sharing screen now, but I'll do my best to have a look. So this is my, yeah, you can see my screen, right? Okay. So I would like to discuss or examine together with you the complex, and pay attention, I say complex, relationship between well-being, cultural heritage, and the use of social network sites in the face of uncertainty and crisis. So I'm saying complex, I'm not saying good relations, I don't say in a linear relationship, I'm talking about complex. I would like to elaborate why I think it's complex. It sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad. So I will start with, I'm open, yeah, like this, sorry. Let me start with giving a brief intro to cultural heritage. I'm sorry, I know there are a lot of experts in the audience and also in the panel, but I took a very generic definition. When we speak about cultural heritage, we talk about cultural body, collective body of historical, artists, and intellectual accomplishment, artifacts, traditions, practices, current and past knowledge shared within society. It includes tangible, like statues or painting, or intangible, like digital elements that has value and important for the society to add to its identity and a sense of continuity as a society, as a group. So this is a brief a definition of what is culture heritage. Let's add well-being and what it has within the relationship to cultural heritage. Well, cultural heritage it plays a vital role on people's well-being by it provides sense of identity, sense of belonging, connecting to the roots, and especially in times of crisis. The well-being is very much defined by the connection with the cultural heritage. And when individual or groups can access and engage within the cultural heritage, the research showed that it has a positive impact on their mental and emotional well-being. So this is the connection between the well-being and cultural heritage. Let's move on. Social network sites like Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, LinkedIn. Well, again, it's very generic. They shape the way we communicate, connect, and share information. Like students, also students do it like this. It's powerful tools for connecting people. We have all kinds of social networks, but eventually they connect people, particularly during times of crisis. I don't know if you're familiar with Facebook. When there is something in the world, there is a app going within the Facebook saying, I'm okay if I was there in some place of disaster. And also the social networks enable individuals and groups to maintain their social connection, stay informed, and express their thoughts and feelings. It's a place so you can say what you think about the situation. Let's move on to social networks connectors within global uncertainty and crisis. We see that people turn to social network to seek support. And I'm sure you know it when you log into any of your social network. I would love to know if you have account in social network in the chat, so I'll know that I speak to audience that really understand about the social networks. You can share your experience there and find some kind of a connection to online communities. They offer a space to connect within like-minded. And this is, maybe you know it, but the algorithm really reinforce people to see statuses of individuals or groups that you're like-minded. You will less see, especially in Facebook, you will less see a connection or data or information from people not like you, unless you decided to follow them. So with this, like that you have connection with like-minded individual, you can have emotional support, and this can positively impact your well-being. So let's summarize what I did so far. Cultural heritage influences individual well-being. The social networks provide online cultural heritage experience, digital, not tangible. And in turn, all of this influencing well-being and individual self-identity and community resilience. So this is kind of the basis to what I want to show from here. So I would love to hear you maybe write to me, why do you think it's complex? Why do I say complex? And I look at the chat now before I move. I hope it's okay. Can you tell me, why do you think it's complex? You can write in the chat. I'm waiting here to see. Why do you think it's complex? Why do I think it's complex? I'll wait a few more minutes, just seconds, to see. Anyone would love, I would love to. Okay, wait a second. Stop sharing. Wait a second. I'll see. Okay. So I'll go back. So I'm sure you're all excited to hear, why do I think it's complex relations? Okay, here's my point. The social network offers many alternative realities that may not be true or authentic. We all know about the fake news. Actually, you, I can choose my preferred narrative, what the story I'm telling about the situation in times of uncertainty. And another thing, it's dynamic. It's changing all the time. So sometimes it's good, but within the fake realities, and also that we see a certain reality, this is really hard. Or what is the narrative I'm telling myself about the cultural narrative or cultural heritage? So I want to share with you the 3 examples held by students in Israel. As you know, from on October 7th, we had a masquerade in Israel, and now we are in war, and how they see the narrative in Israel. One is kind of, I'm not sure if you can see it. You can see here, this is a student did it. I'm okay, but in the shade, you can see I'm broken. The students felt very broken, also us, broken with what was happening. So it's kind of, you put the shade and say, I'm okay, but also we know that something broke. Another example, we talk about the mother of the nations. So this is a picture took by a student. He went to elderly place that women, they were knitting hats. And I'm sure you remember from World War II. Now it's very hot in Israel, I'm telling you. Having these hot hats, it will not it will not be used, but this is something like, okay, they are here, the older women there, they will wait for you and they will be here. Many of the students went to the army. So this is something that really made me kind of having some hope. And the third example is a former student who is now leading the cultural narrative. His name is Joseph Haddad, and actually he's an Israeli Arab Christian. He's one of the leaders who is setting the new cultural heritage, mainly saying we are together in this and we have to find a place to be together. So now you can see that one of the leading of the cultural narrative, I don't want to say heritage, cultural narrative, is not Jewish. He's from Israel, but he's not Jewish. So this is something really makes me some kind of optimistic. And I would like to leave you with another thing, another topic that I did not refer, which is the AI. The AI offers you whatever you want. So how do you know which is true, which is not, and what will be within the cultural heritage, and what do we teach our students?
So, Gila, sorry to interrupt you, but just.
Yeah, no, I finished now. I'm okay. So I hope I kind of raised something for you to think.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, and I'm open for questions.
Lots of inspiring issues, especially because, as you were saying, artificial intelligence is a main point for discussion. I think we all are involved in studying this kind of development, and we have a specific duty in finding, in reflecting on the different kind of uses that we can have with artificial intelligence from many different point of views. I don't know if we have already questions or we can move them maybe. Let's see here. I can see questions. But anyway, we'll have the time to have.
I'm staying here. Thank you very much.
Especially on the idea and the need to work on information and on how to teach to select information. So this is another very, very important area of study. Thank you so much, Gila. Thank you for being with us in such a difficult time. So now we move to Diana Andone presentation, and I just introduced her briefly. There could be, lots of things to say. I will be very brief. Diana Andone is the director of the Learning Center of the Politecnica University of Timișoara in Romania. Diana runs the team who developed the university's award-winning virtual campus CVUPT, and is also lecturer at the Politecnica University of Timișoara, Romania, in the area of multimedia and web technologies. She is passionate about ubiquitous access to technologies and how they can be used to improve people's life. Diana holds a PhD in designing learning spaces for digital students with the University of Brighton, UK, and an MA in European Studies in learning about opening learning, postgraduate distance education course at the Heriot-Watt University, Edinburgh, UK, and MSc in artificial intelligence at the Politecnica University Timișoara, Romania. A publication list comprises many different books, more than 80 papers presented at international conferences. She's reviewed for 12 international conferences, 4 journals, 6 best paper awards at different conferences, and since 2010 co-chair of the EADLW conference. In 2012, she received the Eden Fellow title. In the last years, she was involved in over 30 EU-funded projects. She is really, as we say in Italian, a tough woman, recently with a focus in open education, publishing and technologies. So I thank you, Diana, for her time, for being with us, for all the work she has been doing, and I leave the floor to her. It's 9:18, so that we can keep the time. Please.
Thank you very much for this, Antonella. I just hope that you haven't had too much information. I just want to be sure that you are seeing correctly the slides. Perfect, if that's fine. So I will try to be a bit different than Gila, if I'm allowed. I'll try to probably raise you. I'm so sorry for what's happening in our sides of the world. Romania is very close with Israel and has a third of her border with Ukraine. So you can imagine that our life is neither too easy at this moment. What I would like to speak is about the co-creation and how this can really improve students' motivation and student life, and with some focus on education for culture and creative industries. So basically that's the topic, and I want to share with you that we started this work in culture, creative industries with our students back in 1999. And here you can see some of our graduates since then and also more recently. So all of these are involved in our higher education day-to-day activities, either doing face-to-face activities or in blended learning or online. But we also have something which is called open online courses. We have developed with also Antonella's team, the DigiCulture project, where we have developed 13 different courses in 6 different languages, all of them available to anyone to follow and to access. Why I'm mentioning this in the context of well-being, because this has been increasingly used by the volunteers working in the area of culture and creative industries. And I think that this is an area where we also need to focus, not only to our students, but to the practitioners, the volunteers, or anybody who is doing something and just want a tiny bit of information on some area and some access. So that's why I'm putting it. Another thing which we are doing, and it's very close to my heart, and it's, I think, a very good example on how we can improve the activities with our students, are student contests. For example, we are running the digital media student contest, and in the last 3 years, this is the 3rd year, the Spotlight Heritage student contest, which is dedicated to the heritage and with the digital part of the heritage. And if you want, you're still free to join us. The contest is in 2 weeks from now, and you still can join. So if anybody is interested and you are a student, please share also this with us, and please come and join us. We are doing a lot of hackathons and workshops, especially with the focus on open culture and open data, which are also increasingly using the student activities. And we have done with students a lot of co-creation. This is, for example, examples of a virtual museum of a famous culture, which we have done, again, only with students in master level in this case. Or, for example, virtual museums of our university. The university is very famous for the technical artifacts and for the science museum. And all of this digital virtualness was done with students at undergraduate, master, or PhD level. And all of this involvement of the students in producing activities and materials which after that are reused or made for public are really increasing their motivation and their willingness to study, or their experience on how they can work with different topics in digital part, especially in the context of culture and creative industries. But the project, which is probably one of the key enabler for our students' positiveness towards the use of digital tools in culture and in heritage, is the Spotlight Heritage Timișoara, a project which is part of the European Capital of Culture. Timișoara is this year European Capital of Culture, and encompass a lot of interfaces and facts from the physical part, museum exhibition, a street exhibition, street theater, dance shows, a lot of them also digital. And digital, beside of the website, we also have a mobile application with augmented reality, and we also have this International Digital Culture Festival and the student contest, which is very popular for our students and which is trying to enhance the experience which the student has. It's a very vast project. We have more than 106 landmarks from the city which are encompassed in the project, in all of them in a mobile application, website, and augmented and virtual reality. I need to say that quite a lot of this data, and especially the AR and the VR part, have been developed by the students working together with us. And it's not only students from one side. I'll put the video and I'll speak on top of the video because I didn't share the sound of it. It's also part of the work which we are doing in international teams. So as you can see from the names of the students are not coming from one university. The students are coming from different universities. There are students from us, which are very good at programming. There are students, for example, from Italy, Antonella students, some of them, which are preparing to become museum curators, and they have very good experience on how to work with heritage artifacts. Then there are Danish students, which are good in gaming, or Norwegian students, which are also good in virtual reality programming. So putting teams of students at an international level to co-create something which is after that released to the general public and used in a large context, also international context, because this application has been showed and used in different festivals in 11 countries until now. It's really encouraging them to and motivating them to do something more, and also to learn something about the culture, heritage, how to treat them, how to work with artifacts from the heritage, from the local or national heritage, and also how to work in an international team, which is an experience which we consider very useful for them for the after they graduate and after they start working. So, for example, you can see it's quite a complex application, and 90% of it was done by students. So, and I consider, I'm very proud of this, I need to say that, and I consider that this is one of the most valuable experiences which the student can have to really enhance their experience in the university. And we have done this also in a mixed reality application. This is quite a unique application, not only for us, but for quite a lot of other countries, because we were able to do 3D scans of heritage objects from the National Museum of Banat, and then created an entertainment application where everything is becoming a personal experience. Again, I will go directly in the video. And this personal experience has been done again by the students, working in international team. You see, there is a student from Italy and a student from Romania and one from Germany. Here is the application demo, because as this is a mixed reality, is holographic, and it's quite difficult to be captured, or it's the how you see it and how you take it, where we have the artifacts. There are more than 50 artifacts at this moment from the museum, which are selected. They can be picked, enhanced, and you can find some information about them. So this is the educational part of the application. And then you need to identify in which part of the exhibition that object will fit best. And in that situation, it will be, obviously, congratulations, and you will be able to see if that object is fitting in that part of the exhibition. And this is a personal exhibition. So imagine the joy of anybody using this for objects which you usually see after a glass in a museum, very well protected, that you can almost have the feeling of touching them and manipulating them and getting them somewhere. And this is, again, an application which was done by students last year, and they are working also now on enhancing this application. All of these experiences have been also worked with students, with a PhD student, for example, to create the first NFT, the first non-fungible token in our university blockchain interface. And this design and everything was worked with students, because in this situation, they are able to learn also about how to release digital artifacts from culture and from art in blockchain, and how you can use that technology for enhancing that part. So that's basically the experience which we have had this year in the Romanian Cultural Festival, which was in May to July, where the students have been able to showcase this also to public, to general public, have the work with the public analyze for usability and a lot of questionnaire. And this is also enhancing their ability of understanding how the application are used by the public in different sectors. Thank you very much. I hope I was just in time.
You are perfect, as usual. So I think you really had gave us a view of what you have done in Timișoara. I must say that the work that has been done there is absolutely amazing, and it is really important to all of us. And I really wish that many people who are attending our session today can come and visit directly the astounding work that you have been doing. So thank you so much, Diana. I don't know if there are questions now or later, but anyway, don't worry. I'm also glad that that we had this kind of development today, because now with Thomas and then with Antonia and Mara and Maria Rosaria will go deeper actually in tools that we can use from, and also I think we will have the opportunity to have a pedagogical perspective in analyzing the use of certain tools that you have already seen in Diana's presentation, which was really interesting to all of us. So thank you so much, Diana. Thank you so much for being with us. I don't know, I can't see any question at the moment, but stay there.
There
stay
was a
there.
comment. Yeah. There was a comment. In the text, and I answered.
Oh
to
yeah,
that
yeah.
comment.
So if you have seen it, please tell me because I didn't. So there's a comment in the chat.
And I answered it.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Okay. Great. Perfect. Perfect. So go and also have a look in the chat. Okay. There's someone interested in the courses. I think they should be active anyway. Am I right? Yes.
They are active. Probably it might be possible, depends on which country they are coming. It might not work so well because of the geopositional situation. I don't know from where Kat is coming, but it's working. At least I'm in the platform and everywhere, and also the second. Oh,
Yes,
Belgium.
yeah,
It should work.
they say that is working. They're from Belgium, but yeah, please let's keep in touch, and whatever you need, you can also contact us, of course. Thank you so much, Diana. And now I move to Thomas, and I must say that again, I thank Thomas Kador so much. I can tell you that I have been learning a lot from UCL, from the group Thomas Kador represents. So we're all really, proud of having them with us today, and not saying and same thing is for Antonia Liguori's presentation, so for her contribution to I would say to the literature in the field, and that's very, very important. So I can't see Thomas anymore.
I'm here.
Here you are. Wonderful, Thomas. So I'll briefly introduce you and then I'll leave the floor to you. Thomas Kador is lecturer in creative health at University College of London, where he leads the MASC Creative Health Program, which is really something innovative. His research and pedagogical interests include object-based learning, culture, health and well-being, public and community-based approaches to heritage. He has lectured and published extensively on all these topics, including 2 books, one together with Jim Leary on movement and mobility in Neolithic Europe, and the other together with Ellen Chatterjee, which I to whom I send my best greetings, on object-based learning and well-being. So please, Thomas, the floor is yours. Tell me from now, 9:33.
Perfect. I'll set a timer for myself. Thank you so much, Antonella, for having me for this introduction. I'll try and share my screen, and please, if it doesn't work, then shout if the slides don't change or anything like that. Okay, hold on. It's hopefully okay. Yeah. Thank you. So again, I will probably do something slightly different from both of the previous speakers. I will speak less about concrete digital tools or platforms. Mine are very low tech by 2023 standards, I think. So my perspective is more conceptual about, and as you said, talking about the pedagogical aspects of working in heritage on the interface of digital tools and well-being in an educational context. And I was really torn which project I should speak about today. There was one I've just finished, which I mentioned, as WELL's project on student well-being and experiential learning spaces. But what I thought would be maybe more interesting, given that this is the European Distance Learning Week, is talk about the time when we had to do object-based learning online because of the pandemic and the lockdowns. So that's what I have chosen to focus on today. And I wanted to briefly start, and usually if I had more than 12 minutes, I would put this out as a question to participants to tell me what they think object-based learning is, but we don't have that luxury of time today. So I'll give you a very brief definition, which is very simply using material culture in facilitated way for educational purposes. And when we say material culture, I don't need to tell you this. I guess most of you are very well familiar with this. But it could be anything, not limited to, say, museum and curated items, museum objects, curated items, but it could be modern objects, everyday items as well, documents, artworks, any kind of artifacts, stuff, rubbish if you want. You can do object-based learning with all of those, but we are focusing, and that's why my talk is going to be focusing more on working with curated collections, with museum objects and other curated artifacts and ecofacts. And another question I would throw out to people usually is why we use objects in learning, or what are some of the benefits of working with physical objects, in particular with curated objects in learning. And there's lots of different things we can talk about. We can talk about subject-specific knowledge, that for certain subjects you just need to see particular items to fully understand. If you think about zoology and important it is to have a zoological collection and be able to study specimens. The same in anatomy, of course, with medical specimens, or geology, having a rock collection is so essential. But also we can think about transferable and wider skills that are not specific to any particular disciplinary area, like observation analysis skills, communication skills, things like drawing and so on, all really well and easily learned, or much easier learned when you work with objects, I would argue. But then there are wider things as well, like making cross-disciplinary connections, because even though an object might be a medical specimen or might be a natural history specimen or an artwork, you can always look at them from lots of different ways, right? You can always study them from various different aspects and directions. So therefore they are inherently interdisciplinary. And then there are some specific aspects, and that's when we come into the well-being side of things as well. That there are specific learning benefits, for example, helping memory recall. And if you're familiar with Kolb's cycle of experiential learning, they help also with coming up with abstract conceptualizations, coming to terms with new concepts. And then finally, thinking about accessibility, that working with physical collections, I experienced that a lot with students who have different learning styles, and students can really use their own strength engaging with objects, especially because they engage with all the senses, right? Rather than just the visual, which is so focused in education is so focused on visual and to some degree on oral and on listening to people, looking at stuff on the screen. When you work with physical collections, people can use their sense of smell and the sense of touch as well, and another aspect. So therefore, they really facilitate that. And this is where we then also go into the psychosocial role of objects and the well-being benefits. But let's stick briefly with the learning benefits. We did a bit of research about 6-7 years ago, surveying a few hundred students in UCL, and 2/3 of them roughly said that it's just a more effective way of learning than just listening to a lecture or to a talk. And there's some quotes how students have been inspired to learn independently and come to terms with different theoretical ideas and how they relate to the real world. So about applied learning, how it's much more engaging for students and encourages problem solving by being engaged firsthand in sort of their own meaning making. But then we also did some more work more recently on the well-being side of that, the psychosocial role that objects can play by allowing these multisensory engagements. And so we surveyed a couple of hundred students, about 140, 150 students across 3 English universities. And we asked them some questions about, for example, they've all engaged in some form of object-based learning as part of their studies. So we've asked them to what degree, what element of their learning has most enhanced their well-being. And as you can see, here's 2/3 of the students say the practical workshops like object handling, benefited the well-being in the learning. And then 55% were talking about visits to other organizations, and that was in particular to cultural spaces and museums. So visiting spaces, engaging with objects really helps students also de-stress. And that comes out there as well, where we have 84% of students either agreeing or strongly agreeing that engaging in object handling and or slow looking across the curriculum would have a positive impact on their health, on the well-being, and help reduce stress. And I can talk more if people have questions about these publications. But this is illustrated in greater detail. But I'm conscious I have to move on. So this is just very briefly, I'll say something briefly about the module, the context within which I'm speaking about, so having outlined what object-based learning is. So we have a second year undergraduate module that's very interdisciplinary, where students get to use creative and critical ways of engaging with material objects. And in practice, that works by students being assigned a physical object from one of our collections at UCL. We have, as you can see on the bottom there, there's 9 different collections we tend to work with. It's a whole range of objects that students are assigned with to work with very closely. They do their own research on this, their own original project, and then we put 5 or 6 of those students together with the objects, and they need to come up with a virtual exhibition, essentially designing a website. And this has been working for about 10 years now. I've been teaching it for 9 or 10 years at UCL, and every year there's something new, something interesting. But the key challenge for us has been space, because bringing lots of different objects into different classrooms on a big campus has been always so difficult. So one of the first projects that I've been working on when I joined UCL in 2015 was to get a purpose-built space to allow us object-based learning to happen. And it took about 5 to 6 years to get this object-based learning lab. I don't know, Antonella, if you've been over even to see that. I think you might have. In the center of London, so we have this wonderful space, purpose-built object-based learning lab. It opened in January 2020 after 5 or 6 years, and we all know what happened in February and March 2020. So we had about 6 weeks or so of using this space, and then it was locked down for almost 2 years. So here you can see that was just after the lockdown when students were still wearing masks for the object handling. But that brought a whole range of challenges then. So we had this space sitting there and we couldn't use it. And the key question then that came up is, how do we now continue with object-based learning without students being able to touch or closely observe, physically observe the object? And you all know this kind of class setup. We have all been through this for 2 years with our Zoom lectures. So what we have decided to do is we continue the module broadly in the same way, but just with some modifications to make it work in an online environment. And it was very experimental, of course, but we had to make it work. So we briefed the curators when we chose objects to make sure that the objects are available for students to work with online. So they, for example, they have been digitized. There's some high resolution photographs and scans available for them. And that there's also information that the students can access remotely. And then we also rethought, of course, how can we adapt the things we do in class? We do drawing exercises, different handling exercises with objects, trips to collections. How can we adapt those to make them work in a Zoom-based learning environment? And I'm very happy to give you practical examples of that. But if people have specific questions about
Thomas, 2 or 3 minutes left.
Perfect. Thanks. And then also think about, obviously, what the students do in their own time off screen, so we don't spend hours and hours looking at each other through Zoom. And the one key thing is we ask the students to engage directly with that question of what is gained and what is lost when they conduct this kind of work online rather than in person with physical objects. And that was really important. And here's just some brief observations of what happened and some examples in the last minute or so. So students worked really hard to find creative ways of finding a connection with those objects that they couldn't actually physically be with. For example, a couple of students tried to use a craft approach and remake their own object so that they can physically hold it and feel the weight of it and explore what it would be like to have this object. Or they were doing much more drawing. And they also really realized that actually they can do much more comparative work online, because so many cultural heritage institutions put their collections online during COVID, so that there was much more opportunity for them to access objects and collections all over the world. And then just some examples from the virtual exhibitions that students built. This group, for example, built this on the right. You see this funny creature with the UCL hoodie and complete avatar as a guide through the exhibition. So they really tapped into lots of digital approaches, but also they did much more artistic approaches. So these are their objects essentially in an abstracted version. So they really engaged creatively with their objects. And here you can see, for example, one of the pages about one of those objects. And again, the avatar talks you through the whole thing. So it was a really kind of engaging way of presenting, really making the most of the digital skills they had built up. Another group similarly engaged very creatively by, again, guys drawing the objects that they've been working with, and looking at the objects as teachers in a digital environment. So really smart ways of engaging with the challenges that they have been facing. So then just to wrap up, so digital engagement is clearly not the same with material culture as physical engagement. And while clearly not being able to touch objects and handle them brings some disadvantages, there are also some advantages. Like, for example, sorry, just stop my timer. Being able to curate your own learning environment, and there's a but which I'll come back to in a second. Also, the fact that students could engage with collections across the globe. The opportunity to draw on really advanced and high resolution formats, so you could go in much closer, zoom in much closer to objects that they can't with physical objects. And the importance of skills to engage with the digital world, which is even more important now with the rise of artificial intelligence. But just one thing, and I'm sorry to end on a downer, clearly there are some key challenges that we need to think about when we work digitally, right? For example, that there's inequality to digital access across students and elsewhere, and also not students, we can't take for granted that every student has a safe, quiet and comfortable workspace where they can work digitally. So that's something to think about. In that case, how do we make sure that every student is okay, and how do we ensure their well-being? And then equally, the lack of direct social engagement, kind of well-being, negative well-being consequences. And then finally, the large amount of screen time that students would have had and still have, and the importance to think creatively about off-screen activities. So the key findings then is that students were really keen after that, when we were allowed to get back into the physical space. And that made us think actually using some of the digital before we allow students to physically engage can really help to maximize the benefit that students get from physical object engagement. So that was really the key learning. Sorry, I've gone a little bit over time, but I'll stop here. I would be happy for any questions or any examples that people would like.
Thank you, Thomas. There are many, of course, many clues to start a discussion. Of course, we don't have the time. There's a question in the chat related to the possibility of using in the Q&A actually object-based learning, engaging people with autism spectrum disorders. I think more or less you already answered the question, but if you want to give a little word more.
Yes, I mean, I in terms of it can be both. So with physical objects, with specific learning differences and learning disabilities and autism, the fact that you can allow people to work with objects in their own space, in their own time, can make them really accessible to all of those groups of learners, right? Because you're not forcing them to look at them in a certain way. And then in addition, if that's happening digitally, and if that's particular for students with autism, for example, who feel maybe most comfortable not being in a group situation, that can really benefit them. But it depends again on the fact that they need to have access, safe and secure, comfortable access from their own, wherever they are working digitally. But that can really help students if they're not forced into a group situation. So it
Yeah.
can we can really make it work, I think, for students with specific learning.
I perfectly agree with you, and I'm really impressed. And I think you could be too, if you compare, you know, what you have been telling us and the work that was realized in Timisoara, and how they could manage in recreating situations that were very, very astounding. So thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you for your contribution. And actually, I was just thinking, seeing the pictures of the space where, you know, you created the object-based learning reality, that I saw it, you know, when it was the building was starting. So
Yeah.
it was really emotional to see. Thank you
It's
so much.
transformed now. So
Yeah.
so you need to come back and have a look.
I have to. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution. And now we move to Antonia, Antonia Liguori. Again, I must say that I learned a lot from her work, and I hope that every one of us today can learn more and more, but I'm pretty sure of that. And Antonia is a senior lecturer in applied storytelling and director of the master's programs in storytelling and theater at Loughborough University in the UK. Her academic background is in history and computer science, and over the past 15 years, she had the privilege to experience a very diverse and exciting career pathway, both in the cultural heritage sector and in media industry in Italy and in the academia in the UK. Her research has been focusing on three main strands: digital storytelling, informal and non-formal education, co-creation, participation and resilience, applied storytelling, and mental health literacy. Over the past 5 years, she has been involved as principal investigator or co-investigator in 17 research projects of various sizes funded by EACEA and ERC and the European Commission. In all these projects, a role consisted of co-designing digital storytelling workshops and resources to explore the role of storytelling, to dismantle knowledge hierarchies and facilitate knowledge exchange within and across disciplines and sectors of society. She was also awarded an AHRC fellowship at the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access in Washington, D.C., very important award that has since grown into a highly productive ongoing collaboration with this world-leading institution. So I leave the floor to Antonia. Thank you again for being with us. We start at 9:52.
Thank you very much. I got the timer also because I would like to share a digital story at the end. And thank you, each of you.
We need to.
Thank you, Antonella, for the kind words. And actually, I have to say that every time I approach digital storytelling is a learning opportunity for me as well. So the focus of my presentation is actually something I'm very happy about right now because it's very much interlinked to what Gila, Thomas, and Diana just mentioned. So I was taking notes, and there are some keywords of your presentation which are resonating with what I'm trying to share as a reflection. So if we want to move on to the next slide, Carlos, thank you for doing that for me as well. So the focus of today's presentation is, as Antonella was mentioning in her introduction, it's actually a particular case study that was linked to my fellowship at the Smithsonian Institution, and in particular the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access, that is now the Office for Educational Technology. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because it was a sort of change in my own way of thinking about digital storytelling as a practice, as it was codified in the late 90s in California by Joe Lambert and the Story Center Group. So digital storytelling is a creative practice that is generally workshop-based. And it goes through different steps, starting from a story cycle, moving to a script writing phase, voice recording, video editing, and then the sharing of a digital story. That is a short first-person narrative, a video, an MP4, in which a personal voiceover first-person narrative is combined with visuals. So my intention when I went to the Smithsonian was to actually explore how digital storytelling could be applied within the Smithsonian Learning Lab. I'm going to share the link later in the chat, but it's a massive collection of digital objects. So I was actually experimenting a digital tool in a digital platform, but then I came back with some disruptions of this methodology in the exploration of hybrid spaces, co-creation, and thinking about the impact of this approach in terms of people's and participants' well-being. And this is everything I learned, but actually working with the people I had the privilege to work with during the fellowship in Washington, DC, and in Virginia as well. So if we move to the next slide, I'm going to focus on these three key questions, one slide per question. But this is just to give you a bit of context. When I went to the Smithsonian, and this actually resonates with what Gila was mentioning about truth as well. So my attention to their outreach programs and initiatives was about understanding how audience engagement could actually have a role in giving people, audience members, visitors, learners of any form, in formal and informal education, an opportunity to reflect on the value of their personal truth, and therefore to actually try and enhance the involvement of the emotional impact of any activity we were running. So if we go to the next slide, I will then share an example of an activity that we ran in collaboration with the National Portrait Gallery. So it wasn't just a one-off activity, but actually was a series of short workshops to try and work with some audience members in identifying ways in which we could adapt the extended version of the digital storytelling model that I was describing earlier with these 5 steps, which are quite time consuming and not always feasible for all the kind of target groups we work with. So we were trying to understand what to extract, how to shape a new version of digital storytelling in which we could emphasize the importance of human connection. And we were creating new exercises, new prompts, using exhibitions as a starting point to, instead of focusing on storytelling, actually focusing on story listening, and therefore working on human connections to emphasize the importance of co-creation and mutual learning and active learning within this process. Going to the next slide, we then work with different groups, and one of the activities that is, for me, the most touching and memorable was an intergenerational workshop we ran and was linked to a beautiful exhibition at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery that was called The Sweat of Their Face. So as you can imagine, national portrait galleries are difficult places for people to visit because usually they are a representation of power, right? The people with the portrait are the people who could afford to get, to be on an exhibition and pay someone to make their own portrait. So what we discovered was that there were barriers for different types of target groups to actually access that particular gallery. And so we tried to work around using storytelling and portrait of that particular exhibition. There was an exhibition about workers and migration as prompts for personal connections to those individual museum objects. And Thomas was mentioning about the importance of object-based learning, which is actually embedded in the story circle phase of the digital storytelling process, in which we have also expanded with a little storyboarding activity. And you will see in these 2 pictures, these are examples of storyboard in which the museum object was actually providing the context to then tell a personal story, a personal narrative. So I think, Carlos, if you click on now, we should hear an audio file. No, we couldn't hear, but doesn't matter. We'll describe it. Yeah, thank you. No, it's not working at the moment. It doesn't matter. We don't have enough time to go back and unshare. But let me tell you what it is about. It's just this a particular educator from the National Portrait Gallery, which was reflecting on the importance of using museum objects outside the gallery and then in the gallery to prompt those conversations around this particular portrait, and understanding how people, by connecting through personal lenses, are able to actually expand, let's say, the emotional range of understandings and connections with artifacts. The next slide is actually a level forward, moving forward to the next step. So we did first work in the gallery, work in the hybrid spaces using both the digital, the Smithsonian Learning Lab as a digital space, and then the gallery and the education rooms to reflect on different aspects of digital storytelling. And then we run digital storytelling workshops with educators to reflect, to have a sort of meta reflection on the process. And this was quite essential because we were actually thinking about these aspects of social interaction, these hybrid experiences I was mentioning, the importance of emotion in the different creative steps, because each step is prompting different creative languages, the verbal language, the visual language, the listening, as we were saying. And also we reflected quite a while about the importance of the nexus between individual well-being and collective well-being, and how co-creation, so facilitating mutual support in the creative development of the digital story, can have a positive impact both at the individual level, but also at collective level. As I said, I would like to share a digital story. We have the next slide just to reflect on this notion of, we set the value of personal truth as a context. We are now at the level of the validation of the personal truth through a digital story and the digital storytelling process. This particular story that in a second Carlos is going to share on YouTube is a story that was made by a student as part of this project we did together with the Smithsonian in the community college. We asked students to go and visit a museum. And this particular museum, if you are in Washington, DC, I would strongly recommend to go and visit, is the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is very strong in terms of personal narratives. So this digital story is a way for this student to reflect on experiencing the exhibition in the gallery. So the story as a reflective tool. So please play, Carlos, thank you.
On Sunday, November 10th, 2019, I woke up at 6 in the morning. Why did I do this to myself? I had to make sure to get 2 passes for the National Museum of African American History and Culture. These passes were made available at 6:30. I grabbed 2, one for my sister and one for myself, and went straight back to sleep, laptop still in my arms. We made it to the National Museum of American History in no time. There were so many people there who, like me, were eager to learn about anything and everything that the museum had to offer. The Many Voices, One Nation exhibit was home to a topic which interests and inspires me every day: the freedom of the people, all of the people. The many voices in this exhibit were often met with discrimination and segregation. However, they didn't allow this to stop them from fighting in what they believed in. I think this exhibit connected with me the most because African American history is all around me. My family tells me stories of generations past and what they went through. Most of these stories come from the civil rights movement. Stories of the Black student sit-in at the University of Northwestern, and even marches from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, the state capital, surrounded me growing up. The way that the oppressed people of the United States were able to stand up for themselves and others in order to create change fascinates me. In the exhibit, which focused on early transportation, I found a copy of the Green Book. This book was created by Victor Hugo Green to help safely guide African Americans through the South during the Jim Crow era. It provided them with safe zones, hotels, and towns to avoid at all costs while on their journey. The Edward Lee Hotel is in this book. My great-great-great-grandfather owned this hotel. This historical building hosted many famous Black musicians, artists, and civil rights leaders who traveled through Jackson, Mississippi. Being reminded of this left me with a great sense of pride. The National Museum of African American History and Culture is my favorite museum. In the cafe, they prepare many dishes that are deeply embedded within our culture. My personal favorite was the Gulf shrimp and grits. Just thinking of that dish takes me back to hot summer nights in Greenville, Mississippi with great grandma Lee and many other relatives. We would be popping fireworks, cooking in the kitchen, and exchanging stories over. Highlighted. In this section, there was a piece which really set the mood and added a greater meaning to the achievements which these people have earned. There was a poster somebody had made for the March on Washington in 1963, which read, "Look, Mom, dogs have TV shows, Negroes don't." The power of representation cannot be overstated. Representation inspires people. It does this by showing people, oftentimes the youth, that there are other people who look like them and are doing great things which they love. Knowing that this march was just 56 years ago, I am reminded that these days are still not past it. Today, there is still an underrepresentation of people of color in film and TV. Moving forward, I will continue to be proud of who I am, where my ancestors came from, and what they fought for. If it weren't for their persistence, it is likely that I wouldn't be here today, attending a college that provides as many opportunities as Montgomery College. My life would be full of the same struggles that they were faced with. The things that I learned on this trip were strong reminders to not allow the sacrifice that they made for me to go to waste, to not let the blood that was shed and lives that were lost to be in vain.
So I just wanted to end with this digital story, the presentation, and I see there is an important question actually in the question and answers space, which is about how to work with people with cognitive disabilities. Actually, that's something we often do, and this is why I think it's very important to expand, challenge, disrupt the actual conventional digital storytelling model. So there are different ways of adapting it. We've been quite successful in using storyboarding techniques and collaborative co-editing, for example, co-writing, or using just verbal storytelling when possible. So depending on the needs. So I even had the actual privilege to work with a student with visual impairments, and for example, and this is a visual method. So that was probably the most difficult challenge I had in applying digital storytelling with additional learning needs in the classroom, and the result was absolutely amazing and outstanding and enriching for all of us in the classroom. And of course, he created this new role of the, let's say, it was sort of acting as a film director. So I would be happy to have a conversation about how to adapt this model and this approach and this process to additional needs. But I have to confirm that is very powerful and surprising.
It is, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that also our narrative was very powerful, coming from, general considerations to more focused solutions. Thank you so much, Antonia, for being with us. And now, what to say? Of course, I think well the next speakers, Maria Rosaria Re and Mara Valente. I will briefly introduce them. And actually, I think that also Maria Rosaria could say something about object-based learning, having spent some time exactly there with Thomas. Anyway, let me be professional. So Maria Rosaria Re is a research fellow, qualified as associate professor in experimental pedagogy at the Department of Education, University of Roma 3, as well as an assistant professor at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia. In 2020, she obtained a joint PhD in Cultural Education and Communication from the University of Roma 3 and the University of Foggia, a joint program on the enhancement of critical thinking skills in museum users. Her expertise concerns research education methodologies within formal and informal professional training context, She has been a member of the Center for Museum Studies, University Roma Tre, since 2015, and Eden Fellow, European Distance Learning Network, since 2020. She's also a member of the scientific board of the Intellect Research Center for Heritage Education, Wellbeing and Teaching Technology since 2021. Mara Valente, she's a PhD candidate in Theory and Educational Research at the Department of Education, University of Roma Tre. She is carrying out research related to the development and validation of an educational and didactic program aimed at fostering a disposition for caring and respecting the environment in early childhood. After completing her master's degree in contemporary art history, she gained experience working in various cultural institutions and museums in the Roman area. Subsequently, she embarked on a further academic path in primary education, obtaining the qualifications for teaching at the kindergarten and primary school levels. Since 2019, she has been awarded a 2-year research grant at the Department of Education, Roma Tre University, focusing on the topic of digital innovation in cultural heritage education, developing transfer skills and social inclusion. For several years, she has been actively involved in research within the field of experimental pedagogy and cultural heritage education, both in formal and informal settings, aimed at the development of transfer skills, particularly with primary school pupils. Her research interests also extend to the application of new technologies for museum access. She has been a member of the Scientific Committee of the Intellect Research Center, the Department of Education and Human Sciences at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia since 2021, member of the Center for Museum Studies, University Roma Tre since 2018. So I thank both of them for being with us, and I leave the floor to them for their presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Poce, for this wonderful introduction, and obviously to Eden for inviting us to this wonderful panel. Actually, all the speech that prevent our presentation inspired a lot our research that I'm going to present to you. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Actually, our research experience that Mara Valente and I will present today it regards the a focus on how to evaluate well-being at the university level, taking into consideration the relation between well-being and the learning activities that will be done at within university context, and the link with heritage education experiences. So we will start with a brief introduction on the state of the art regarding this research field. We all of us know for sure how there is a sense of crisis around student mental health. The World Health Organization's international survey of 3 years ago that included a sample of about 14,000 participants across 8 different countries reports that 1/3 of the first-year college students self-reported a mental health disorder. So as university students are for sure predominant young adults, and we know about that, this should be viewed in a context, of course, of raising concern for youth mental health in a very general way. So specifically, these surveys identified an increased prevalence of mental health problems among young adults, such as anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and also depressive episodes. So, as the demand of mental health services increases linked to this data, the need for this institution and also a preventive approach is for sure underlined. So at university level, in higher education context, we have the needs and also to provide some kind of mental health services in provision, but also to take care about mental health of our students and to think about possible interventions to support better mental health across the university lives. So we know for sure how learning and mental health and well-being are so close. Research has identified that poor academic performance, social isolation, and high also workload, all of this situation can contribute to poor well-being in our students. And this relationship is also a bi-directional relationship, because with poor academic performance negatively impacting well-being, as well as poor well-being having a negative effect on this kind of performance. So taking into consideration that the curriculum is the only point of contact between students and the university from a learning perspective, this is a valuable opportunity to implement and also to take a preventive approach to fostering better students' mental health. So, and now linking our presentation to what Thomas said before, and also Antonia and Jana, we know that not only the Council of Europe, but a lot of research and a lot of reports underlined how soliciting transverse competencies within democratic culture context improves people well-being, which and well-being can be defined as being active, being responsible, being resilient, and respected and aware in the globalized today world. So, and also that well-being is considered the ability to participate in the active community, and this was particularly underlined by Antonia. So taking into consideration all this assumption, we define a research experience. Our team, guided by Professor Poce, think and design this experiment, quasi-experiment, based on the hypothesis that university educational path designed to foster transverse skills through cultural heritage can promote students' well-being, and we focus our research experience in this on these research questions. So does the enhancement of some transverse skills promote students' well-being, and do educational experience based on heritage objects, so also through object-based learning, do this experience enhance students' well-being? And starting from these research questions and the research hypothesis, we defined a specific learning path and a pilot experience that will present by Mara. Please, Mara.
Yes, thank you, Maria Rosaria. Yes, starting from these reflection, theoretical premises, and the research question, the research team led by Professor Poce carried out a pilot experience involving students enrolled in the educational research methodology course pertaining to the first year of bachelor degree program in educational science within the Department of Education and Human Sciences at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia during the academic year 2022 and 2023. The course provides targeted activities and was delivered in blended mode. So the activities were carried out both in person and online on a dedicated platform. The course aimed to provide the skills and the knowledge necessary for the application of theoretical and methodological basis of empirical and experimental research, with a particular focus on defining a research problem, formulating hypotheses, identifying key data collection instruments, critically reviewing hypotheses, and selecting coherent paths for research problem resolution. Additionally, it prepares students with the tools required to develop research projects in the field of education that address the educational needs of a given context and to make informed judgment about educational situation in the context of experimental pedagogy. The course was structured into 3 educational modules, and in addition at a workshop, the activities present in the course place a particular emphasis on education within in the realm of museum and cultural heritage. There were 3 intermediate formative assessment and 3 group activities designed for the planning of museum educational experiences, analysis, and application of international design tools, as well as the study and in-depth exploration of specific case studies. In connection with these, at the end of the course, an evaluation tool designed by the research group led by Professor Poce was administered, and this tool aimed to assess the well-being of the students in relation to both their mental health status linked to academic satisfaction, and to investigate the contribution of the learning experience in terms of teaching and evaluation to their individual well-being. Next slide, please. The questionnaire includes different sections. The first one was dedicated to capturing background variables, so including socioethnographic data, educational background, and attendance modes for the courses. And the second focus on questions related to the course evaluation, specifically covering organizational aspects, study materials, and the adopted working methodology. The third part was dedicated to self-assessing the cross-disciplinary skills developed through the activities offered within the course. And notably, the items were developed based on indicators from the EACEA model: knowledge, skills, attitude, values, and ethics, a model designed to assess 21st century skills, in particular the 4C skills, so creativity, critical thinking, metacognition, and digital skills. A section was dedicated to gathering opinions related to aspects of heritage education in connection with the proposed activities, and the last section was reserved for assessing the students' well-being based on an adaptation of the college student subjective well-being questionnaire developed by Renshon and Bolognino in 2016. The tool consists of 15 items that investigate 4 dimensions: academic effectiveness, academic satisfaction, university connection, and academic environment, as well as gratitude toward the institution and the academic context. The questionnaire was adapted according to the course instructional design and the activities provided, aiming to highlight strength and weakness encountered in the course. And I will now leave the floor to Maria Rosaria for results and conclusion.
Thank you, Mara. So here you can find some results of the research experience carried out in the last academic year. All the students enrolled in the courses answered to the survey because it is a compulsory activity to take the final examination. So the students attending the courses are mainly female, on average 23 years old. Most of the respondents declares that they work mainly in a part-time mode, so they are not full-time students. But despite this, the 60% claim to have attended almost all of the course lectures, both face-to-face and at distance, because the courses are in a blended mode. Please note that the course foresaw in particular 2 lessons per week, one in person and one in distance learning, for a total of 51 hours at semester. But almost 20% of the respondents to the questionnaire stated that they participated in only a part of the activities. But the core activities of the course are rated positively overall, especially the group activities. But taking into consideration a more specific results linked to the main theme of our research experience, we tested for the correlations between the answer given by our students, taking into account the results of previous studies that underlines the link between well-being and transverse skills, in particular 4 skills, so creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, and digital skills that, as underlined by Professor Andone and Professor Kurtz, are so much close to the enhancement and to the cultural heritage experiences. And we tested also a possible correlation to the participation of our students in the heritage education activities and the level of well-being they declares at the end of the experiences. So the results, as you can see,
We have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, thank you so much. The results show a positive correlation between critical thinking, digital skills, and creativity enhancement, together with well-being promotion. And this, as I said before, is underlined by other studies, and also a positive correlation between well-being promotion and a good evaluation rate of heritage-based activities that we designed in our courses, that one Mara presented before. So in a very general overall evaluation, the first experience of our research had very positive results. For sure, we can think and we thought about future development. Firstly, a validation of the entire evaluation tool, so the survey into the Italian language, because actually the evaluation tool is now validated only in English language, and for sure the realization of a quasi-experiment with a control group, even in different bachelor's, master degree schools and university contexts, as the one presented by Thomas Kador. So thank you so much for your presence here and for your attention.
Thank you, Maria Rosaria. Thank you all. I think we had, as we said, a very consistent, at least, development of the topic for today's session. I don't know if there are questions, but I think Carlos is there, and we have those news to give you ending the session. But I just wanted to see if there were any questions.
Can I jump in? And thank you, Antonella, for excellent moderating, and thank you for inviting us. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all the presenters that were with us today. It was so good to have you all. As I was saying, this is a group of relevant scholars, but dear friends. So this is something very, very important to all of us. We can be good researchers, but if we have a good way of interacting, of being, in a good atmosphere, well-being helps research too. So
Yes.
thank you all.
Thank you very
for
much,
this one.
all. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks to you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to all of you. I want to remind you some issues related to our association activities, and actually this association, as you might feel also from outside, is we always call Eden as a family, the family of Eden. So the Eden will gather together as every year in the annual conference that will take place in Graz next year, Eden 2024. But yes, the previous slide was related to a new initiative that we have been starting, and that I really hope will involve lots of people from all over the world, the Eden Digital Education Leadership Academy, that will take place end of November, from November 29th to December the 1st in Barcelona at the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya. So it's a very important opportunity to learn more about digital education and leadership. This is a very important topic. I think we all should be part of such initiatives, especially the governance in our universities that could take the chance to have different kind of exchanges with different experts that will participate in this initiative. And I really support this new initiative from our association. Next slide was related to the annual conference, which is always an interesting and useful appointment for all of us who meet together and know more about each other's work. In Graz this year, June 16, 18, 2024. And then we have the European Digital Education Hub, which is a very, very important initiative supported by the European Commission on mentorship and clinics, knowledge building activities, accelerator, reading corner, and much more. So please connect to our website to know more and to know more about how to be part of these channels. The next slide will tell you about the incoming events. Tuesday, November the 14th at 2 p.m. Central European Time, how to empower teachers with a critical vision on digital competencies. Again, a pivotal and crucial topic. Moderators would be Teresa Romeo and Montse Guitert from WOC Spain. Speakers Cesar Herrero, Sandra Trojia, Carol De Britos, and Aria Kangashariu. So please, you can use the QR code or anyway connect to our website. More evidence-based approaches to technology use in early education, Monday, December the 4th at 1 p.m. Central European Time. Again, work on advanced evidence-based approaches. This is something that, has an expert in experimental pedagogy. I strongly recommend. So moderator Natalia Kuchirkova, and speakers Christian Magnusson, Sandra Matters, and Charles Missoud, and Jasper Riednanen. Sorry for the pronunciation. And then I think that was the last slide in our presentation, just to remind you about all the activities and all the initiatives that our association is working on. Please be in touch, be with us, and I wish you very good work over the rest of the sessions in our very intensive week. Thank you again to all of you for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very inspiring.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you all.